Welcome to the Field Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bob McNabb, and with me today is my co-host, Scott Lundy, who lives and leads in the Middle East, along with our regular guest, Teams guru, Jim Doggett. So excited to have you guys here today. And as we were just praying and talking before we started this, we hope this will be a fireside chat and be some encouragement to those who are listening today.
Yeah, I'm fired up to interact with you guys, even over a great distance. Isn't that great? Our hearts are connected, even though we're miles apart.
Yeah, I agree, guys.
Yeah. So I'm excited that we're starting this new series on teams, the focus specifically the team leader. So in the past, we have talked about gospel community and how important that is. And now we're shifting in this season to the team leader and trying to bring help and encouragement to the team leader. And this new season, we're entitling Broken Leaders, Thriving Teams. I'm excited about some of the topics that are going to be a part of it. We'll have topics like the most important thing you can do as a team leader. And there's so many different things you could put your hand to as a team leader. It's bewildering, but how do I know what's the most important thing I can spend my time doing? So we're going to have an episode about that. We're going to have one on level 5 leadership. How do I take my leadership to the next level? What does that look like? And then building resilient teams. How can I work toward helping my team be resilient? And what does that look like? And then support structures. This is an important one. What kind of support structures could be put in place to help me and my team thrive for the long run? So excited about those. Jim and Scott, I'm wondering which ones that you're excited about for the season coming up.
I think for me, the one that really strikes my heart or something I'm passionate about is the kind of the most important things a team leader can do. And I think not only that, I think that this series will help not just the team leader, but also aspiring team leaders because they're hearing, oh, this is what I'm growing towards. I need to know that in the future.
Yeah.
And then you've got team leader supervisors. They're the ones that are like, oh, yeah, I need to ask my team leader to oversee. Are they doing this? Or, oh, no, I've seen that. This gives me a good way to talk about it or bring it up. And then, of course, you got area leaders that either oversee lots of team leaders or the team leader supervisors. So I think it's going to help all different levels of leaders.
I'm pretty excited too. Even some of the simple definitions that we'll explore. What is a team? What's not a team? Having the same job description, but never really interacting with one another, and having the same boss doesn't mean you're a team. I work with groups that call themselves a sales team or a marketing team, but they don't ever really interact on the same project together. They just do their thing in different places. Man, there's something so much more fulfilling to a team that's really operating the way we're going to hope to bring out during the series. And I'm excited about that. It's that, some of the best versions of me I've ever seen were when I was on a team that was calling that out of us.
Absolutely. And that leads to the topic that we're going to talk about today, which is the gospel moves best in teams. And I'm excited about that. It can't always move in a team, but it does generally move best in teams. And I think we'll see that very clearly today. So I'm excited about talking about that. And it is important, as Jim mentioned, there are some different definitions of team. And what are we really talking about when we're talking about team? And so let me just start us off with an academic definition of team from Peter Northouse. He's an academic leadership theorist and professor emeritus at Western Michigan University. He says that a team is a type of organizational group that is composed of members who are interdependent. I think that's a key word. Members who are interdependent, who share common goals, and who must coordinate their activities to accomplish those goals. So that's for the academics out there that wanted that type of definition. I can always trust Jim for a good metaphor to help really make things clear and simple to the rest of us. So Jim, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what is a team?
It is a metaphor, but I didn't discover it. It's in the scriptures. In 1 Corinthians 12, it actually likens a team to a body. And listen, it's not a stretch for us to think that if I have an arm cut off or a leg cut off, I would be less optimal than I could be. But you call someone that's missing a body part handicapped in some way. And of course, it uses all kinds of teams, all kinds of gifts. But to really be a team like we're speaking about, you have different gifts. It's actually important that those gifts not be the same. And it's an opportunity for someone to make a contribution that is separate and different from some others, but so important as it's coordinated and lived out on a team. So I'm pretty excited. Really, that interdependence word is a good one here. I'd love to find a better one that we use all the time, but interdependence probably is the right one for us to speak about the teams here.
Yeah, you were talking about in a sales team, maybe in the business world, where these individuals are doing their own thing and they're not really helping each other and they're not making each other better. In fact, they might even be competing against one another.
Yep.
But give us a sports metaphor or two to help distinguish between a team that is functioning with interdependence and one that's just aggregating their results at the end.
Yes. I think of a volleyball. My daughter played volleyball, and it was, again, you're covering different parts of the court, and I got your back, and I'm ready for something that might happen that we weren't expecting. But there's also playing the position and the role, and your other teammates can trust you in it. Football, of course, is my favorite. I played that and enjoyed it. It's different from a golf team. Golf is an individual, or tennis even. Doubles is a team. But individual tennis, we just watched the French Open, Kathy and I did. It's a lot about just the singular determination of one. To prepare, practice, go execute. Let me just tell you, I'm not at my best alone. I don't prepare as well when I'm just working alone. I don't get as much enjoyment out of it when I'm alone. There's another in-between team that I don't know if we want to nuance this, but I'm thinking about the 4x100 relay in the Olympics. You have individuals who only run their part, but they have to have smooth coordination from one to another. So that's another kind of team. But the kind of team I'm really speaking about in missions would be the one where we're all on the court at the same time, coordinating back and forth with one another. And that's a beautiful synergy to watch when it's working.
Yeah, and the metaphor that the Bible gives us can't be topped, really, that of a body where it really has to work together and the different parts make each other better. That one is fantastic. That's good. Scott, would love to hear from you.
Yeah, well, part of trying to figure out what team is, you got to look at what is not a team, maybe to compare and contrast. And I remember in 1997, I went on my first mission trip. I had to get a passport for the first time. And I go to Zimbabwe. We're doing a program for this people in this one country of a mission agency. And as we're talking, they're like, yeah, this is the Zimbabwe team. And I'm with them for several days. And as I get to meet everybody, I'm like, so how do y'all work as a team? And it turns out everybody there were Lone Rangers, and once a year they came together for like their team retreat, but they never saw they would talk to. Now this is 1997, so it was definitely before Skype and Zoom and all that stuff. It just emails were getting up there, but they weren't quite as prevalent like they are now. So I was like, how can you guys call yourself a team when you don't see each other? And some of you guys don't even talk to each other, but here once a year, again, it's like that sales department that Jim mentioned earlier, but it can be pretty broad what some people call the team. Going back to what Jim was talking about with the volleyball team versus the 400-meter relay, just think about the track and field team where you got the guy doing the shot put. His success or failure is totally independent of the guy doing the long jump or the pole vault, but they're all wearing the same jersey. They all are cheering each other on for success, so that they all represent the same school or what have you. And their points do add up to something, but their independent success is really not interdependent. And while some may call that a team, and it is a team in a sense, I just think from what I've seen on the field that we're not really talking about that type of team to really see multiplicative type work and advancement of God's kingdom in the unreached, unengaged areas of the world.
Yeah. And why does it matter? It matters because something Jim says a lot is, I can only be at my best when you are helping me be at my best, the best version of me, and I do my best work when I'm with others who contribute and add in, because I'm not a whole body of Christ. And so all of the places where I come up short, if I'm working together with you, our combined whole is way better than what I would have if I was just working by myself. And so we're not trying to be pedantic here and talk about what is a team and what isn't a team. Our heart here is pastoral, trying to encourage people that, you know what, there is something good to be had. God made the body to be connected and working together. And man, we can be the best version of ourselves and we can have the greatest fruit when we're living in a healthy, good team. And so that's the heart that this is coming from. And so let me just summarize here some of the things we mean when we say team. And so we mean that there are two or more people that are working together toward a common goal, right? There are two or more people. Jesus sent nobody out by themselves. He sent at minimum, sometimes much more, but at minimum, two people. Okay, so at least two people working as a team. And I think sometimes in the missions world, you'll have agencies that'll say, well, there's a husband and wife, and so they're a team, and we'll send them out to a city by themselves. And friends, just again, from a shepherd's pastor's heart, those two become one. And I think they should count as one, not as two. And so I think there needs to be another one added in there for those people to get their very best. I think you want at least 2 units, let's put it that way, and that they're in regular communication with one another. You can't help each other if you don't know what's going on with each other. You're not communicating, coordinating, you're assisting each other. So there's that interdependent word, there's a common goal, and the result is synergy, that what you're getting from working together is more than you would get if you were working apart. And guys, what have I forgotten or what would you add to that?
I love that you brought up synergy, and I want you to expound on that a little more, because I've really seen it. I've seen it in others. I've seen it in myself. There's a discouragement that can happen to me when I'm alone in something. It's almost like I'm aware of my failures and weaknesses more. They're like expanded and enhanced in front of me. And there's something about being on a team that tends to bring a focus not on what went wrong or what I'm lacking, but on our potential of things going forward. And I'm so much more hopeful. I'm so much more engaged. And I have so much more stamina when I'm interacting and bouncing back and forth, an echo chamber, if you will, of encouragement or assistance. Yeah, of course, that can only happen if there's a connection at a heart level. Otherwise, I'll just compete with you or try to measure up. But when there truly is that connection that the Spirit promises, doesn't he, to those who are working together in the body, that there's something remarkable, beautiful, even supernatural happens that we were created to benefit from.
Bob, I want to point out that it takes a while. You don't just start off with synergy. The Tuckman model teaches that there's stages of team development. There's forming, storming, norming, and performing. You've got to go into performing, and then the norming is building that synergy, and then you get into performing and the high-performing stages. You can definitely get there, and there is a way to do it. There's actually science, and I had one mentor that, when we were teaching on teams, he would talk about, okay, is it Holy Spirit or is it science? And the answer was posed as, is it either or? And the answer is yes, because it's a Holy Spirit-led science, because we can learn from team dynamics. We can learn from professors and the academic research about what brings a team together, helps them be unified and have that synergy.
Yeah, that's good. I heard years ago about Belgian draft horses and how each one of them could pull about 8,000 pounds if they pulled by themselves. But now you put them together and let them pull together, you would think 2 horses would be able to pull 16,000 pounds, right? If there's 8 and 8. But no, it's not. It's 20 to 24,000 is what they've measured these horses do if they are untrained. But if you train them and give them time to learn each other and learn how to work in coordination with one another, that goes up to somewhere between 30 to 32,000 pounds that they can, remember, individually 8,000 pounds, okay? To go from what would have been maybe 16 if you add the two together to 30 to 32, that's twice as much return. Wow, that is powerful. And I think the scripture talks about that. 2 are better than 1, for there's a good return for their work. Yep. And synergy that we can get by actually coordinating our efforts, working together, being in a team, not to mention the protection, the encouragement, the delight, and all the other things. And I would love for us to take a few minutes and to talk about what we think are some of the other benefits you guys have seen from working with teams.
There is a protection. You mentioned that one can help the other up. That's scriptural and biblical. But if I'm fighting in the middle of an enemy skirmish and I'm alone, I'm surrounded. There are parts that I can't see, the parts that I'm blind to, but you just add one other person and there's a higher chance of us seeing what we need to see. And then I'd say it does matter who you're connected to and that you invest in connecting at a heart level or a deep level. It was Jim Rohn who said, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's probably true. I remember when I had little kids, and I probably looked a little childish at times because I'm hanging out so much with my infants. But anyway, having people that you enjoy, people that you interact, if I don't know you at a heart level, I'm likely to reduce you to your most outward rational self, or, oh, you're a different theology than me, or, oh, you like a different sports team than me. If I don't know you well, I'm likely to reduce you to just a short list of things that are different. But if I know you, even though there's a difference, even though we like different teams or different things, I'm for you, I'm with you, I'm connected to you. So there's real benefit of operating on a team at a depth level. course, I can't help it. I'm an Alabama fan. So, of course, I'm a big fan of Nick Saban. And he talks about having a group of highly skilled individuals on a team versus a chemistry is what he calls it, is when you know each other so well and you're for each other, you're able to overcome different obstacles or problems, or when things go wrong, you're more likely able to come out of that if you really have operated as a team. I'm drawn to that even on the field for sure.
Well,
it's good.
I think another thing is just this concept of support, and just a couple examples from Moses' life. When the Israelites were in battle and Moses had his staff up, and when his staff was up, they were doing well, they were winning. But as he got tired, he would lower his staff, and then all of a sudden they noticed, I think it was the Amalekites, but the other side was winning, so that he would do this, and eventually he was getting tired. Aaron and Hur, they brought him a rock and sit here. And then they stood next to him and held his hands up, for the rod was up. And so they just continued to do that. It was like all day. And eventually they win the battle. So that's one example of just support, of working together. And they weren't actually down in the battlefield. They were just alongside Moses and the power of this rod. A second example in Moses' life is in chapter 18. Moses' father-in-law comes to visit him, and he sees that Moses is bogged down with dealing I call it small claims court kind of stuff. Everybody's complaining, and they're coming to him, bringing their case before him so he could judge. And Moses, in verse 18, Jethro says, "What you're doing is not good. You're going to wear yourself and these people out." And then he creates a system of support and tells them, hey, put them over 10s and 50s and 100s, and he goes on up. And Jethro was on the team. He was kind of an external consultant, but he used the people within the community to form a team for judging and dealing with the people's problems.
Yeah, because I remember he says, this is too much for you by yourself. You need that team of other people around you. So those are some great examples. I think one of the benefits of team that comes to my mind is huge, actually, is the idea of critical redundancy. What I mean by that is, you think about if you're flying on an airplane, how many engines do you want on that airplane? I want more than one, because what if that one fails? Or you're going out in the Gulf of America, which I'm real near here right now. If you have an engine, and a boat with one engine and it fails and you're out there, you're stuck. I want multiple ones. And so you want, anytime things are important, really important, you want redundancy. And so if you're trying to take the gospel to a people that have never heard before, and if something happens to you, is that just the end of it? Mm-hmm. No, don't let that be the case. Bring in some others, work with others, so that even if something happens to yourself or whoever, the work can still continue on. So I think that's an important one.
Even we ought to be informed a bit about why a team is important by looking at what the enemy tries to do. The enemy actually seeks to isolate. There's so many examples in nature where the herd moves, but the goal of the predator is to isolate a weaker member or an older, whatever. If the enemy's goal is to isolate, shouldn't we be encouraged that there's something vital in staying connected and together and working together? It's the Lone Ranger in something as difficult as taking the gospel into another culture. A Lone Ranger is about as effective as a bug on a windshield, I think, sometimes. So again, don't want to discourage anyone, but there's something more powerful about being combined together and using the synergy we talked about.
And even the Lone Ranger had Tonto.
Even he wasn't alone.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right. I think one of the other aspects of it, to me, a benefit, is when I look back at my life and I think about the times where I was enjoying just the work. Boy, it was times when I was together with a team and we had a common purpose and we were working together, encouraging each other, helping each other in the weaknesses and celebrating the victories together. Man, the times in my life when I haven't been in that kind of teamwork community, I've longed for it and wanted it more. So I think sometimes we talk so practically about the work, more work will get done. Yeah, that's true. But the enjoyment, God wants us to enjoy our lives, to experience abundant life. And I experience life more abundantly when I do it together with others on a team. The friendships, the fulfillment, the delight, and the growth. Mm-hmm. Sure. Jim was talking about how I grow more. Yeah. So those are some other ones.
Just speaking.
What about you, Scott?
Yeah, just thinking about delight, fulfillment, and friendship. I'm a pretty high introvert on the Myers-Briggs, and my mom, she was an extrovert. And I don't remember at what age I was, but at some point she was retired and she's like, how is it? You're such a high introvert, but it's all these different seasons of your life. You have such great friends. Like I just don't get it. And I'm like, well, Mom, it's because we're on mission together. And she says, what do you mean? And I said, it's kind of like the guys in the foxhole, or there's a camaraderie that comes about through battle and go through hard things. And if you watch a lot of the different war movies, if they show the early on stages, like when they're boot camp and stuff, they don't like each other's personality conflicts. But man, they get into battle, they got each other's back. And there's something that happens in the conflict, that kind of sanding down the rough edges, that makes you bond together. And it's through that we get to have great friendships and delight. And so my mom was just shocked. And I was like, well, it's not about being an introvert and extrovert. It's about doing life in community and things that matter.
Yeah, that's right. And something Jim said, he said, looking at what Satan does and trying to learn from it, it just made me think, and looking at what God did. So remember Tower of Babel, God said, you know what? If they can continue to work together have a language that allows them to do teamwork, they'll be able to accomplish anything. And so it was not a good thing because of reasons that we can study in the scriptures there, but it was not a good thing for them to build this. And so God says, well, I got to stop them from working together as a team. And so then confuses their languages. So of course, we see in Pentecost, God actually helping people to understand each other and bringing the communication back. And I think saying, hey, we want the gospel to move forward in teamwork and with communication and with collaboration, reversing some of what had happened earlier. But yeah, encouraging stuff. Now, I know there are some critics of teams and kind of foreign to my world, but yet I have talked with some well-known missiologists who have made comments along the lines of, it can be hard to get to movement if you have a team. And so I think we should address that issue along with some other critiques of team. And let's just talk about those, because I think it's a big loss to not fully lean into all that God has for us and created for us in team. Now, I understand there may be a situation where there is a tribe deep in a jungle, and bringing a team in there is just not an option. Understood, okay? And I believe God will give special grace for that. And I believe that in that case, there still needs to be a team. They may not, like you shoot someone to the moon, there may not be that many that go, but there's a huge team behind supporting, in the case of mission, praying and doing all we can to support, even though it's just maybe one person or a couple that goes into the jungle. But that's not most of the workers today. Most of the peoples of the world have migrated to massive mega cities. Most of us are working in environments where it is 100% possible to work in teams. So we're going to talk to the majority, realizing that there are some cases where it's not perhaps possible. But what do we do with this criticism that, it's hard to get to movement with a team? I think what someone might be saying there is, if you bring a bunch of foreigners in, a bunch of outsiders in, that could possibly slow things down. And so I want to clarify, when we talk about team, we're not saying bring a bunch of foreign workers in. We're not saying that that has to be the composition of the team. I think sometimes is a necessity, but man, whenever you can, work with proximate peoples who are believers and keep the number of foreigners small. But that doesn't mean don't have a team. That means team with people who are the closest that you can to the people that you're trying to reach and work with. And so don't hear this kind of one idea of a bunch of foreigners coming in. That's not what we're saying. We're saying team. Now, and you form the best team possible, the composition of that team. Now, let me just leave it at that for the moment. I think before I get off on another topic, I think a couple other things I just want to say with that is, I've seen many attempts where one person, an agency sends one couple or a single into a city a couple hours away from all others by themselves, and I've seen those fail time and time again, meaning they ended up leaving before anybody came into the kingdom, before any churches were established, and that was just the end of it. Now, I don't want to call that, I'm not saying that person's a failure, but the truth is everybody associated with that had the goal of a church being planted and hopefully churches multiplying. And that goal wasn't reached. Even though those people might have been super faithful and done a great job, really the goal wasn't achieved. So I've seen too many times where, we'll throw someone out there and see if it works. We'll throw someone out there and see if it works. We'll throw someone out there. And so when you say it's hard to get to movement when you have a team, well, I want to say, yeah, and it's even harder when you don't have a team because there's so many false starts that don't go anywhere and the human carnage. And a lot of times, sometimes people come out of those really healthy and have grown. Very rarely. Usually it's some really hard battle scars, some hurt, some difficulties. Yes. And so you've got to take all that into account before you just discredit teams. So let me stop there and ask you guys your thoughts on this particular critique and any others that you've heard.
Well, I know one critique I've heard is the people that are maybe more independent or they feel their strength is as a Lone Ranger, and maybe their org forced them to do team, or maybe their org doesn't value team, and so they just came from this culture of buckle up and get your bootstraps pulled up and go do it. Be a man, you can handle it. And so there's that kind of independent spirit. And in fact, in 2015, I was asked to come in and teach all the leaders from basically I guess you could say the east side of the Atlantic. So it was from Europe, Asia, Africa. I don't think we had anybody from Australia, but they brought me in to teach on teams for the leaders a couple days before the entire 4 regions came together, or 3 regions. And it was a number of people that say, well, we tried teams. That doesn't work. And it was like, wow, they're not even open to hear. Like, they're hearing what I have to say because their leadership basically brought me in and said, hey, they're going to be resistant. You got to talk them into it. And that's why I was being brought in as the outside person. But there's definitely the independent spirit, but then also there's, I would say, the wounded spirit. People that have tried it, got burned, that maybe they were on team and it did not go well, and they made a vow, like, I will never do that again. And so it's just, and God does call individuals, I think, like we mentioned, in the remote tribes, but I just see it's rare that God really sends people out alone. He may call you as an individual, but he's going to send you out with a team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point about tried it didn't work. I do often meet folks who've been hurt by the team. And yeah, they made their best effort and came up lacking or whatever. And so they're unwilling to step back into a team environment because it hurt the last time they did. But I hope that they would recognize that the benefits are worth pursuing again and again. It does take chemistry. It takes being connected at the heart level to really get the most out of that team. But don't believe the lie that because it didn't work then, it won't ever work for me. There's something very validating, very energizing, and I think about just how much more enjoyable, Bob used that word earlier, when you're not alone and you're pulling together. It's funny. It's not a metaphor. This is real. When I was younger, growing up on the floor, my dad and I would split wood together. And I know in all the movies, people who split wood, is one guy out there with an axe and he hits a log and it breaks into 4 pieces or whatever. No, real wood that's good for burning in a fireplace is knotted and twisted. And an oak requires 2 axes to really do the hard work of splitting. One hits and creates a little bit of a crack, and then the other one hits and hopefully lines up with that crack. And there's something so enjoyable about 2 men, even a mishit every now and then, you're quick to tell the other one, oh, that's okay. There's something about being engaged in the same log together that allows for something very enjoyable. Guess what? I got older and I started splitting wood with one of these super efficient, high-powered machines, hydraulic, and you can actually split wood by yourself with that. You can roll a log up there, hold it, pull a lever, and it comes down and splits it. I don't enjoy that near as much. I would give anything to be back on the end of an axe with my dad on the other side and working together. There's just something that God put in that just makes me come alive. And I want to do that with others on a kingdom-minded team.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I know another critique is that, well, teams take a long time. It's just slower. Just be faster just to go by myself and get started. And I think immediately of this, what's been attributed to an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think about the significant things in my life that are still going versus the things that I started and then they just piddled out. I think about 35 years ago, I went with a team there were 11 of us, and then we broke down into sub-teams so that we wouldn't be too big. But yet we had all the benefits of a larger team and the benefits of the small teams. So we had this team 35 years ago into Thailand, and that work of evangelism, discipling, working local church is still going on 35 years later. And that would have never happened if I went by myself. The people that I was with, it happened because of all of us, and I just couldn't have done it. Launch Global, I could have never done something like that by myself. It's the people that had all the gifts I didn't have and made me better, and I got to be a small part in something bigger. And that's the beauty of team too, is you can't claim you did it. God gets the glory because you're just a small part of it.
That's right.
And in the things I've done that are enduring, I've just been a small part of a larger team. And so I think there's a beauty to that. Of course, people sometimes have theological or missiological differences. Jim, I know you've probably seen some of those.
For sure. Yeah, again, I keep going back to the heart level connection, but our flesh always opposes the things of God, right? We all have a flesh and it opposes what God, right? And I say often my flesh is evil's most willing accomplice. My flesh doesn't want a team sometimes. My flesh wants to just go shine brightly myself. My flesh wants to make the decisions I've come to and what I believe God has taught me about theology or missiological bent is the best. I used to think anyone who eats more than me is licentious. Anyone who eats less than me is legalistic. I have somehow arrived at the perfect spot that everyone should be at. That's what the flesh does to us. But there's something beautiful about being on a team of diversity, a diversity of leaders. You know, if you have one guy who's the super personality, that he's really only one guy doing it and everybody has to fall in line behind him. If he's successful, you call that a cult. But if you have a team where there's a diversity of leadership, there's a diversity of personality, a diversity of gifts, that's when something beautiful, and think about it, that can give hope to those that you're reaching. If the only way to have a movement is have a super powered leader, dynamic leader who can do it all by himself, what hope does that give to an average indigenous person who just came to Christ? Well, I can never do it. I have to keep following, that. So if you can demonstrate to others that by being on a team, you can be effective, it's more reproducible. They're more likely to say, well, I can't be the super dog. I can be on a team with some other people. What was it that Jesus said in John 13:35? Others will know that you're my disciples by your love for one another. The way you interact with one another will actually validate that I am who I say I am and that the kingdom is coming and growing and the church is building. I believe even though I'm on a team now with a guy who has a very different political view than I do, but because we're connected at a heart level, I very much am for this guy. And it's even helped me open my eyes to maybe some blind spots that my camp or politically might overlook really easily. It has made me better. I'm a better person because I'm connected to a diversity of gifts and theology.
Yeah, that's good. And before we get on to our next critique that we want to talk about, you just made me, the unplanned here, you made me think about a couple of research findings, and your John 13:35. It reminds me of when, after 10 years in Thailand, I went around and surveyed a lot of the Thai believers that had come to Christ over the years. And I said, hey, when we first met you, you were closed off to the gospel and you didn't believe it. You didn't have any interest in it. What was it that opened you up and really set in motion your coming to Christ? And 8 times out of 10, they would say, it's when I saw how these Christians loved one another and I want that. And again, It doesn't have to be foreigner and foreigner. It can be multinational. It can be with local and it could be all nationals. We're just talking about teams. We're not talking about the composition of teams right now, but the power of team. That's some impressive missiological insights there of how powerful that is. God's word's true. John 13:35 actually works. Yeah. Who would have thunk it? And so that's the one. And then the second one is, I did my doctoral work around the question of, why do some aspiring disciple makers succeed at having second, third, fourth generation disciples while others fail? What's the difference? And we found a lot of things that were significant, but probably the thing that was most significant was those who worked together in teams to make disciples. Those were the ones that succeeded. Yeah, think of a bell curve where there's a few people who maybe have the gift of evangelism, they're extremely extroverted, and they're just going to do it without a team. There's like 3% of the population. They're just going to do it. Yep. They're just the super people. They're going to do it. And then there's maybe 20% of the population on the other side of the bell curve that they're not going to do it no matter what. If you give them a team, they're just not going to do it. But the majority of us in the middle, we want to do it. Our heart is willing. Our spirit is willing, but our flesh is weak. We need others to do it with. We found that to be true around the world. This wasn't research that was confined to just one area. We started with one area, then we started looking at people from other countries, other cultures. We found that this was a universal principle, that when people made disciples as a team, that people who were sitting on the sideline got into action. And the more people that were laboring, the more fruit there was and the further the gospel went. And so that's why I think our title of The Gospel Moves Best in Teams is 100% spot on. But okay, let's go back. Sorry for the diversion there. Let's go back to dealing with these different critiques of team and just speaking into those. Scott, would love to hear, what critiques have you heard?
Yeah, well, one critique or concern that I've heard, and it resonates with me in some way because I'm a pretty high introvert, but it's relational exhaustion or maybe a preference for solitude. People say, wow, ministry really drains me enough as it is. I don't want to have to navigate group dynamics or team drama and stuff like that. And I think it's important. I remember there was a quote on a wall at a retreat center. It said, when you love well, and it put in parentheses there in ministry, but it says, when you love well, it will cost you. Depletion is inevitable, so restoration becomes essential. And so when we talk about team life, we're not saying it's constant interaction and that if you're going to be on a team, you'll never get some alone time. No, you've got to plan that in. You got to do that whether you're an introvert or extrovert. But it can actually help to hold each other accountable. Hey, I know they're an introvert, so hey, maybe ask them, are you getting enough time alone, or things like that. Whereas extroverts, it's almost, hey, did you get a chance how'd your Sabbath go? Oh, it was great. I went and saw all these different people. And I was like, okay, different people recharge in different ways. That's fine. But you don't have to be exhausted just because you're maybe more introverted and on a team.
Yeah. Jim, you seen any others? Heard any others?
Yeah, well, I'm also an assessment guru. So every now and then, this objection to a team will be, well, if I join a team, my gifts are not going to be as spotlighted, or I'm going to lose something of myself if I join a team because my contributions are not the normal or whatever. And I'm reminded of I used to work with a group called Booster, and they're the funnest group of guys you ever met. They go into schools and help raise money. They get all the kids fired up. They run around in a circle. And they're mostly extroverts, and they're mostly gift of gab, easy speakers. But I remember one year I'm on the committee that's highlighting and championing our most effective workers. And one year the company gave away 15 different awards. We had about 100 staff at that time. 85 of our staff were extroverts. 15 were introverts. We gave away 15 awards that year, and 8 of the awards went to introverts. Why? Because everybody was similarly gifted on the extroversion side, but those who had a gift that was different and were complementary, they actually became the most popular people on the team because they were able to do more than the extroverts were in all these different areas and so forth. So it taught me something. It can be the opposite. If I join a team, my unique gifts are likely to be more recognized, seen, called out, championed, and celebrated than if I'm not on a team and I'm just trying to do my own little gift over here by myself. So again, I think the body analogy plays into that again, but it's real that when you are operating on a healthy team or a team that is aspiring to help, your gifts can actually make contributions that expand it, that multiply it rather than minimize it.
Yeah, that's right. All right, maybe time for one more before we move forward out of this dealing with critiques.
Yeah, I'll share one that's come up some is this perceived loss of calling. Some may say, well, God's called me to this place to do this work. And if I have to join a team, what if that team, that team's not where I feel called to go or what I need to do? And I especially see that in organizations or people considering an organization where you have to join a team in order to be on the field. Like one of their core values is be a part of a team, so they don't really send out Lone Rangers. And being on a team doesn't cancel your calling. What teams can actually do is confirm it and help you fulfill it as part of a larger big picture, so to speak. And I've also, the flip side of that, called to a place. Like I said, I live in the Middle East, and I've got just in the last, 6 weeks, 2 different people I work with in different ways that have been, I don't want to say invited to leave. They've been required to leave their country. And so if they had so locked into a particular place and a particular type of work, their whole world would be shattered now because they're like, well, now what do? I was called to this country, and now I'll never be able to go back again. And that they maybe put too much of their identity into a very small aspect of their calling. And so I just want to encourage people to think about, you can have your calling, you can have your identity, and God may be doing it, working in you in different ways. In fact, I remember, Bob, I'll just share one other story, Bob. This was back, 20 years ago when I was coming to work for you, and my heart was to reach Muslims, and you were trying to recruit me to go to Latin America to start a training program under a seminary. And I was like, but Bob, there's not that many Muslims in this Spanish-speaking country in Latin America. And it was like, I know I really feel called to the Middle East. I really want to work in those countries. And you're like, Todd, when you think of a professional baseball team, and at that time I was around Atlanta. So you're like, do you think the Atlanta Braves, if someone wanted to play for the Atlanta Braves and they said, yep, I'll sign a contract with you, but I only want to play baseball games that are hosted in the Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, which back it's moved since then. Or do you get a part of a team where you can work together, each other's rhythm, the shortstop knows, you can throw, everything is working well as a team. And it doesn't matter if you play in Atlanta, St. Louis, New York, Chicago, LA, because there's something about working on a team. And that really set me free in some ways, because the team you were putting together, there's so much common vision and values. And while it only lasted a couple of years, what we were doing, it really was a springboard to helping me actually get later on to actually be in the Middle East, where I've been over 12 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Good work.
That's right. The team is more important than the ballpark.
Yep.
I know there are times but I get it. I fell in love with the Thai people, and my heart beats for the Thai people. And so if somebody just showed up tomorrow and said, well, let's go to this other country, I'd be like, God's really, and I'd say, hey, God, would you please build a team that is in this? So I'd be praying both ways. I'd be praying, God, could you, if you really want me to be here, could you bring a team together for me to work with these people? If there's just absolutely no team, I might say, Lord, what are you up to? Do you want to move me? And maybe just for a season, like he did with you. It was just for a season, and then he brought you back. So I think that's where your palms up, palms open. Lord, what are you up to? And yeah, I think because when we look at the biblical model, it is hard not to see team on every page. And so let's take a few minutes and kind of look at some biblical basis for team. Let's start with the Old Testament, then talk about the New. And so would love to hear you guys. What verses come to your mind when you think about team from the scriptures?
I'll jump. I know I'm quick to speak. I'll jump in with Nehemiah. I think there are a lot of healthy team dynamics around Nehemiah's remarkable feat of building the wall in Jerusalem. And I think about the team's reaction to adversity. Saban talks about that all the time. How are you going to respond to adversity? There was a point in Nehemiah where the enemy is threatening to come and tear down the wall. And Nehemiah hears about it. And so it actually diminishes the work in one sense. They had to carry their materials in one hand and a spear in the other. But because they had a common enemy and they're reminded every step that there's an enemy out there, I think it contributed to the wall being built so quickly. They rebuilt the wall, for the people worked with all their heart. I believe having that common enemy or that common adversity allowed everyone to pull in the same direction, and the result was remarkable. It's astounding. And there's nothing like having to tote a spear around in my hand to remind me that there is a reason I need a wall when I go to sleep at night. And so I also like it that at some point it's mentioned that they had singers placed at different places on the wall. I don't know about y'all, but if I work out with some classic rock in the background, I'm much more into it. So they didn't have radios back then or streaming Spotify. They actually had to employ singers to help keep the team going and motivated and moving. And can't you just see that? I love Nehemiah's example of
and I think just think about the overwhelming task of building a wall around a whole city. Is, hey, I got this, guys. I'll do it. What? There's no way. There's no way.
Right.
And yesterday I was with the rest of the Missio Nexus team. We were on a video call praying for unreached people groups. Went to the Joshua Project website and we took different groups we were praying for. And you get a sense of the enormity. You take just one people group that has millions of people in it. And you just say, how will we ever reach this group? It's going to take teams multiplying into other teams, so if you think about the enormity of the task and you see how God employed teams. Scott, what about you? What are your favorite Old Testament examples of teamwork?
Yeah, one I already mentioned, Aaron and Hur helping out Moses. I mentioned that earlier. But also you got Ecclesiastes 4, verses 9 and 10. It says, 2 are better than 1. If either of them falls, one can help the other up. And that's just another example. I think about David and his mighty men. That was a team of people. He didn't go and try to conquer all these things by himself. He ended up having a core group of warriors within an army. We had the 300.
Yeah, that's good. And what comes to mind for me is Proverbs 27:17, where it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And I think about there's quote that is often used, attributed to Abraham Lincoln, where he says, if I have to give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and he says, I'll spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. And I think about how other people make me better. I could just go at it with my dull axe and just be working like crazy and getting nowhere. But the other people around helping sharpen the plan, helping put in their insights, and then put together a strategy and a plan, sharpening me, boy, so much more will get done. And so I think there's some good wisdom there. What about the New Testament?
Always go to 1 Corinthians 12. You know me, Bob. It's like if the scriptures are a city, that's my block. And which talks about different body parts in there. At one point here says, well, I'm not a part of the body because I'm not an eye. Even on this visually, eye contact is what happens first when two people meet, right? And so eyes are front and center. Eyes tell you a lot about the person. So the ear is saying, well, no one ever looks at me. I'm not prominent. Therefore, I'm not necessary. I'm not a part. And Paul says, where would the body be if it had no hearing? What if it were only an eye? Look how handicapped it would be. How would it get across the room? How would it hear? We see a way there where evil even pursues giftedness by sometimes making some people feel inferior. And the ear felt inferior to the eye in that story, so he didn't want to engage. And Paul said, no, come make your contribution. The body needs it. And then another point, we see the head says, oh, well, I'm the head. I have no need of feet. I'm the head. I don't need feet. And Paul says, no, you have to have feet too, or how good is a head if it's just stuck in one place? I'm expanding, of course. So that's the other way evil will pursue giftedness, is to make you feel superior to others. And I don't think evil cares which ditch you get in. I'm inferior, I'm superior. He just wants you in one of those ditches. The harder place is where a team will call you. I have contributions to make, but they are not the only thing that needs to be contributed. There is a balance. I'm making my contribution, but I'm also receiving from other members things that I don't have, things that I need. And so this picture of the body, I think, is it's a beautiful New Testament picture of the kingdom. It's just like a body. And how wise of Jesus to give us this analogy that every human being has right there right in front of them all the time. My body.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Scott?
Yeah, well, just coming off of 1 Corinthians and what Jim was talking about in Ephesians 4, in verse 16, it talks about the body as well in verse 15, 40. But before that, in verse 10 and 11 or 11 and 12, it's what some call the apest gifts, the apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, the shepherd, and the teacher, and how those are brought together for building up the church. And by the time we get down to verse 16, he's saying, from him, the whole body, where he talks about in this body, Christ is the head, but from him, the whole body, it grows and builds itself up in love, and each does its work or kind of its own part. And so to me, that piggybacks on what Jim was just sharing as well from 1 Corinthians.
Yeah, that's good. In light of us closing in on our time, running short here, I'm going to just make a few comments about some other. I wanted to mention Jesus' strategy and Paul's strategy. Think about Jesus. He pulled together a team of 12. Yes, he broke them into sub-teams. He, by doing that, didn't have teams that were too big, that they didn't slow things down, but they all had the benefit of coming together into the larger team and having the redundancy there and the encouragement and the different giftings. And so what a beautiful model, a larger team with sub-teams. And so we see that in Jesus' model. We see when he sent out 72, he didn't send out a team of 72. They were broken down into twos. Then you think about the book of Acts. You think of Acts 13, where the Holy Spirit says to set aside Barnabas and Saul. We all know that. But what's not usually observed is just a few verses later, if you start reading, it wasn't long into it that they recruited John Mark to come. They said, you know what, two of us, this team's too small. We need to recruit some others. And so they recruit John Mark into it. And then Acts 15, you can see that Silas has been added to the team. You go on to Acts 16, Paul wants to take Timothy along, so he recruits Timothy. Titus, if you read in Galatians, Titus joins the team, Priscilla and Aquila. And they just keep building the team. I went through and I counted every person in the New Testament that Paul called a co-worker, and I came up with 35 different people. Yeah. So yeah, they weren't always together all the time. We'd leave somebody in this city and they're finishing the work, and some others would go ahead before he gets there. But it's coordinated, and they're working together, and they're breaking down into sub-teams. And man, could we match the growth of the New Testament church? If we want to, we need to do things the way they did and not try to improve upon that, what's biblical there. So, of course, you read the epistles and you hear Paul saying, Paul, Silas, and Timothy they're all listed in when he starts introducing his letter to the Thessalonians. Or anyway, you pick that up all along. So we're looking forward to unpacking these things in future episodes. What does an ideal team look like? What's the composition? What gifts should you have? Should you have people from different multicultural teams? Is that a benefit? We're going to look at all these different aspects in future episodes. And the reason we're talking about team is because this season is really about the team leader. But you can't really start talking about a team leader until you talk about why teams, what is a team? And so we're starting with that, but we're going to continue to move toward team leadership. So in closing, we'd just love to have each one of you give you one final shot at maybe sharing a personal reflection or story from your life about teams. Jim, would you start us off?
Yeah, thank you. I remember something I'm just now unpacking and learning about teams. I have 5 children, and they all played some sport at some point. And I can remember as a dad sitting in the stands when my third grader is out learning to play soccer. And ball going around, all the little group goes everywhere, and they were hardly a team. But we had snacks at the end of the game, and so everybody was happy.
Yeah.
And then I saw that same group 9 years later win a state championship in soccer. Yeah, some had moved on to other things and some different people, but the core was that same group of third graders. And it was so I want to cast some hope here to anybody who's maybe on a team and it's not optimal and, oh, wow, my team could never be like some of these teams you guys have mentioned. Part of it is just staying in it and continuing to learn and grow together. There's something. I had a son who was pretty good at baseball. He got on a travel team, a bunch of people that he didn't know, but they're really gifted, and they go off and play. It wasn't nearly as satisfying and enjoyable as that core group that had come year after year, had done it together. And I do want to cast some hope that if you're on a team that's maybe not as good as it could be, that doesn't mean you got to go look for a better team and just join it right away. No, seek to learn and practice team together. And eventually some beautiful things can come from that.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. What about you, Scott?
Yeah, I think if you're on a team and you're struggling, or maybe you feel Jim's younger kids when they were running around the field, but if you feel like you're in a situation where it's challenging and struggling and questioning, should we do this or not, just know that there is help out there. There are options. Me and my mentor for some time were being asked to come in and do annual team evaluations. They wanted someone from the outside to come in and give, like, how are they really doing? We're seeing these things, these some good things, some challenging things. And we went in and we did an annual evaluation with them and wrote up our report, debriefed it with the team before we left, and then we gave it to their leadership. And we always try to have good things, but we also try to speak the truth in love. And we came away from that like, this team, they're more like a track and field team. They're all wearing the same jersey, but they're not really working together. And they didn't seem willing to change. So we basically told the leadership, look, if you don't want to pull the plug on this team, then I don't know if it's been a lot of time and effort resourcing them. It's going to be like pouring time and money into a bottomless pit. And but that team, about a month after we left, they went off as a team and did a team retreat. They went, they prayed, they fasted. They had these documents that we had given them, and they prayed over it, and they felt a leading from the Lord to implement some of our suggestions. And so a year later, they come back to us, the leadership did, say, hey, we want you to go back and evaluate that team. We're like, what? Why would we do that? We told you don't. I feel like you're doing the very opposite. Now you're asking us to buy into this theory that we can keep pouring into them. And like, oh, they changed. And I'm like, we don't know. But we went just out of relationship. And sure enough, we didn't know they had done that team retreat. And when we met with them, I mean, after that first retreat, within 18 months, they had, I can't remember, 6 or 7 like house churches going. Don't know how many professions of faith we had because they only counted people once they got baptized. And so that's where they were after 18 months. And so just know that if you're on a team and it's struggling, get help. And if you're a person helping, yeah, speak the truth in love, but don't assume God can't show up and use what he's going to do for people. So two encourage it. 1, if you're on a team, and 2, if you're overseeing teams and trying to help teams, God can do some pretty amazing things.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Yeah, I may be repetitive here, but when I just think about my experience with teams, I can't get away from this overwhelming sense that any success I've had in my life is a result of other people being alongside me and working together in teams, and thankful to the co-laborers I've been blessed to work with over the years. Again, my enjoyment of life and work has been enhanced by team, the sustainability of things that just keep going because of others and working together with others. So I think as we were talking about beforehand, before we started recording this episode, there are a lot of people out there who are by themselves, who desire a team, who want a team, but they don't have one currently. And then there are others who, again, think, I don't want to, that's a hassle. I don't want to be a part of it. And I think have maybe bought into this idea that they'd be better by themselves. And so we're hoping that this podcast in some way is stirring within you a heart and desire to experience all that God has for you in your personal life, in your work, together with a team, to experience gospel community with others, to experience teamwork. But for those who are in the situation where you do desire that, I just want to point you to prayer. I can't tell you the number of times where I have felt like, I'm alone here. I need help. And I've just started a season of prayer and trusting God that God would provide teammates, people to work with. And He's been faithful. Amen. And He's done it. So I just want to give you that word of encouragement, is to turn to Him in prayer and be expectant of what He will do. Any final words from you other guys?
I think
Well said. I think that's great.
Yeah, and I'm just encouraged not only from this, but what else we're going to have up in this season. I think it's going to really benefit others, and I think even us. It'll iron sharpens iron for us as we continue to lead people. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what God does.
Yeah,
Sure.
Me too. Me too. Especially looking forward to the next episode where we'll be looking at what is the most important thing that a team leader can do. What is the primary job of a team leader? Because again, like we talked about, there's so many different things a team leader could spend his or her time doing. And so what's the most important and what does that look like? So thank you guys so much for being on this episode and sharing your experience with teams. And it's been really fun.
Thank you, Bob. I'm an idealistic person, so I will often aggrandize things, but my coffee even tasted better today because I was on a call with my team here. And I just really appreciate you and the opportunity for us to stumble, bumble, but move forward together as a team. It's really been special. Thank you.
Yep. And I too just echo that. And I used to live in the same city with you guys years and years ago, and it's great to collaborate again. And even though I can't be there in person, but to be able to be here, see your faces, to interact, and it's just, again, part of encouraging each other and spurring one another on toward love and good deeds as we hope that blesses others by what we're doing. Thanks, Bob, for leading the charge on this.
Scott, you can see our faces, but let me just say, you have a stunning silhouette.
Yeah. And for those of you who are listening to the podcast only, this is a video episode, which we haven't really been doing in the past. This is our second one. And if you want to catch us either on the video part of Spotify or YouTube, there is a video here and you can see Scott's stunning silhouette as well. And so we will bumble and mess up, and there'll probably be some rough edits in this, and that's just going to be the way it is. But I hope that our pastor shepherd hearts, for those of you who are on the field, really are heroes. I hope that you'll hear that we are cheering for you, and this time is for you. Any suggestions that you have for us, we'd love for you to put those in the comment section, and please let other field leaders know about this, so hopefully they'll be encouraged as well. That's it for today. This has been the Field Leaders Podcast, ministry of Missio Nexus and the Missio Nexus Podcast Network. And leaders, I want to remind you that you are not alone. We are here to help you connect, learn, and collaborate. God bless.
God bless.